I don't know if he didn't care, if he came up in the Pop, era where he's like, no, this is what Popovich is going to do. This is what I'm going to do. Like Popovich held Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker accountable. So whatever that is to you. Now listen, the movement of Rob Williams off the ball so he could be at the rim, and there's a lot of different things he did, the switchability, all that stuff. Like that's all personnel related. You can't do the same thing with the Celtics as you do with the Pistons or whatever it may be. You can hold your stars accountable. You can go through any team in the NBA, and you want to say, hey, you know what you're going to get? You're going to get your coach. Just like these guys are going to be accountable every single day, every single moment. He's going to call timeouts. He's going to lay into players. Players are going to go back at him. Then he'll bring out the iPad, and he'll show the player, this is what you just did right here. You can't do that.
How y'all doing on this wonderful Friday night? I got a dope live for you. Absolutely well researched. Big shout outs to Larry. Um, Larry Kane sent me a clip of Brian Scalabrine talking about Ime Udoka. Now, my admiration for Ime goes back 15 years, 14 years, long time. The type of human being that just commands absolute respect. I've always gravitated towards tough people who were genuine and sincere, and I've always felt that way about him. His journey in basketball is such a unique one, and if he is hired, and I do suspect he will be, but if he is hired, you will see me fanboy harder than you have ever seen anyone fanboy over a coach in your life. Um, I'm going to talk about a lot of things today. This is a pregame show, I guess, because the Raptors are playing in an hour against Ime Udoka's ex-team, the Boston Celtics. But in this video, I want to take a look at exactly that clip, what Brian Scalabrine said. I want to take a look at who Ime is, what he did with the Boston Celtics last year, and how that fits in with the Raptors this year or next year, specifically next year, and why he's such a perfect fit in terms of his philosophy and how it fits the style of roster that we already have in place. Jay asks, how many teams will be looking to hire Udoka? I can count at least 3 off the top of my head. So let's start at the top. The Raptors have a head coach, and he's under contract next year. I want to show you a clip in terms of why I feel he will not be the head coach next year. And you can gauge from this what you think. I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison of the Sacramento Kings locker room after an assistant coach won his first game. I want you to see the reaction of the Sacramento Kings. Then I want you to see the reaction from the Toronto Raptors towards Nick Nurse as he tries to celebrate Fred VanVleet's 20-20. Okay, just take a look at this and tell me what you see. This is the Sacramento Kings locker room. You can barely hear yourself think, right? You could hear a pin drop.
Good job executed to go. Here we go. Reps, 1, 2, 3, reps. Ready? Stay here real quick.
This is so cringe.
This is the game ball. Come on now. Franchise record. Franchise. Good point guard playing Toronto. It's a hell of a mark. Ready?
Honestly, man, if it was his own son, I would say that would be cringe. It was very weird. Like the locker room after Pascal Siakam had 52 points, that was genuine. It was like it had erupted. It meant something. But this feels like, yeah, Adventures with Smiles saying cringe for sure. Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, seriously, bro, they knew they were on camera. That was the reaction on camera. That's crazy. Towards the end of the show, we will take some calls prior to the game. Hopefully, I can be done with what I want to talk about in the first 35 minutes, and then we'll have like the last 20 minutes, and we might even be if there are like multiple callers, we might be able to do a group chat. All right, so if you feel like calling in, you want to discuss Ime Udoka based on what I've said in this video up till that point, then by all means call in. We'll definitely stop this live prior to the game for sure. Don't worry, we're not going into the Raptors game against the Boston Celtics. So, who is Ime Udoka? So, Ime Udoka was a role player. He had various pit stops. He was, a journeyman. You could say that for sure. He started several games throughout his career. He did start for the Portland Trailblazers. He started a handful of games for the San Antonio Spurs. But then after his playing day, and of course he had international experience, he was undrafted. The Toronto Raptors will love him, right? He was an undrafted guy in 2000. He has a lengthy international career, but also a Olympics career. He played for Team Nigeria, and the connections there do not need to be laid out for you. Masai Ujiri, obviously a big proponent and follower of Nigerian basketball. The two have known each other for, I want to say 17 years now, 17 or 18 years. The relationship has gone back quite a bit. Ime did not grow up rich. That's one thing I gathered about him in 2005, was that he was really like, he came from the grind, right? His family was, he was born in Portland. So that will present the first problem, is that the Portland Trailblazers are probably your biggest threat to steal him out of the Raptors' clutches. But his relationship with Masai Ujiri, and I think the roster here, specifically OG, Scotty, Pascal, like this construction works so well with him, and we're going to get into how that ties into what he did with the Celtics last year. But just in terms of a person, I realized that, the elephant in the room, I'm not going to duck it. Obviously, he did cheat on his wife, and it was with a staffer within the Boston Celtics organization. But that is not a crime. It is not a crime. You can find it morally reprehensible. But I will tell you that Jason Tatum called him his favorite coach ever. Okay. And that's not shade on Brad Stevens, who's a hell of a coach as well. But, it should go to say something that, Jason Tatum has had multiple coaches. He also played at Duke, for Coach K. And he still said Ime was his best coach ever. Look, we are, I don't need to advertise the politicization of where we are as a society right now. It is just going to be easier for people to connect if they have a common background. That's just true. Ime Udoka his background as a human being, from international play to going undrafted to being a bit of an unheralded guy to, there's a story I heard about him. He used to play in the Midnight League. And it parallels so closely to some of the stories that Fred, Pascal, like Scotty even have, like that rise to riches. He didn't come from money. He didn't come from like diaper dandies, right? He's had to struggle, and that's built a sort of internal toughness in him. He's 6'8". I know that doesn't mean a lot to most people, but he's really not afraid to stand up to players, and he can. The Celtics locker room was in disarray last year when Marcus Smart called out Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown for being selfish and not passing the ball. Oh, where have I heard that story before with the Toronto Raptors? But no one called anyone out because we don't have Marcus Smart. And, that locker room was fractured. And then from January 1st, he brought this team back together. Ime Udoka preaches a lot of good things that I also preach. And I think, you can know basketball in different ways. But there is a sort of philosophy of basketball that I really believe in, and it comes from the Spurs. It comes from movement. It comes from defense, playing the right way, playing for each other. And Ime is all about that, holding stars accountable. There aren't a lot of NBA coaches that are willing to hold their stars accountable. And then there are NBA coaches who try to hold their stars accountable, but they're really bad at it. They don't know how to do it, and then they burn out. There are very few coaches that I can think of in the NBA who can do it successfully. Most don't. Some can't. Very few can. Phil Jackson was a great example. Greg Popovich is a great example. Steve Kerr is a great example. Some of the greatest coaches in the league are the ones that are able to hold their stars accountable. So with that said, let's take a look at Ime Udoka doing some coaching.
Stops and run. A little bunch up top, flatten out there, give them space to work. Hey, two things. No transition points this quarter. 27-14 us. We're making the score in the half court. If we do go post, if we hit the post, just get movement. Get movement. Give room, but get movement. You get whatever you want. Just cut off ball. Set some flares and some flashes. Finish the deal, man. You don't need no technicals. Just finish the deal.
I'll take that.
Finish the deal. Hey, finish with boards.
Do you feel inspired to play basketball? Because I do. I love him. I can't say enough about him. Let's move this on. Okay. Let's hear now from this, I believe hang on guys, one sec. So this is an interview with Brian Scalabrine, and I think it is very illuminating, and it talks about Ime Udoka. And I'll pause if there's something that really needs some clarification, but I think it is deeply illuminating. Here.
So when everybody was clamoring, trade Brown, get rid of this guy, he did something. He made some type of, I don't know if it was adjustment, conversation, just said, hey, you guys are going to, you learn how to move more off the ball. Because, like you said, they're going to have the ball in their hand, 35, 40 minutes a game. But, what is it about his coaching style that probably allows two stars to still be able to, coexist and be effective on the court at the same time?
I think the best way for me to describe what I saw is I've never seen a coach, and since 2001, I've been a part of the NBA, so that's a long time. And I've been on championship level teams, 4 finals, won a championship. Tom Thibodeau, best record in the NBA a lot of times. I've never seen a coach hold the stars accountable like he did. I've seen coaches that when I make a mistake, they'll be yelling at me, but wait a minute, whoa, I'm only playing 7 minutes a night. Why aren't you yelling at them? They're the ones that are out there. But he was on in the right way, and the players respected Ime. He was on Tatum and Brown right from the start, and I thought that was amazing because I feel like in today's NBA, everyone's afraid of coaching the stars. Oh man, you don't want these guys to check out. Like Ime, I don't know if he didn't care, if he came up in the Pop, era where he's like, no, this is what Popovich is going to do. This is what I'm going to do. Like Popovich held Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker accountable. So whatever that is to you. Now listen, the movement of Rob Williams off the ball so he could be at the rim, and there's a lot of different things he did, the switchability, all that stuff. like that's all personnel related. You know, like you can't do the same thing with the Celtics as you do with the Pistons or whatever it may be. But you can hold your stars accountable. You can go through any team in the NBA, and you want to say, hey, you know what you're going to get? You're going to get your coach. Just like, these guys are going to be accountable every single.
So I think this is important. Ime Udoka comes from the Popovich coaching tree. If you want to look at the impact that he's had, number one, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum cannot stop singing his praises. Number two, they have both matured tremendously. Like when you listen to them talk now, elephant in the room, I'm also a huge Celtic fan. I love the Celtics. I rooted for them all the way through the finals. And what he did for their defense last year is transformative. And we're going to flash some numbers. Know the vibe saying, dear God, give this team some accountability. I agree. Sir Seacats saying, I think Brian went for a ride on the Ime train too. Sorry, I can't believe we're talking about this guy. Look, I think this is going to be the PR nightmare that the Raptors may want to avoid, and I'm trying to actually get ahead of it. This is why I'm doing this video, because I realize that over 1,000 people are going to listen to this, and I need people to hear who he is outside the scandal, because I'm not sitting here judging someone by the worst thing that they did. Okay? I'm not. It's not right. First of all, NBA players cheat on their wives all the time. Ime is an ex-NBA player. This is very common. And you know what? I'm not here to air out anyone's dirty laundry, but some of you guys have heroes in Raptors culture, Raptors history that I can 1,000,000,000% with confidence, with freaking screenshots, prove to you cheated on their women as well. Okay? I'm talking your favorite Raptor players, well, at least one of your 3 favorite Raptor players from 2003, one of your favorite 3 Raptor players from 2011. It happens. But within an NBA locker room, this dude, okay, and his charisma and his basketball acumen, and he's a very smart person, okay, it commands respect. And trust me, in an NBA locker room, no one's looking at him sideways. I mean, there might be some chirping initially, but it is what it is. Okay. I'm not trying to sit here saying, yeah, go cheat on your woman. Okay. But my biggest worry with Ime in this market is that our media is suspect as hell. Right. And they're going to feel some type of way about it. And it's going to be exactly what you're saying right here. Right. But again, like, what are we doing here? Okay. This is basketball. Okay. Cheating, having a consensual relationship with somebody is not a crime. Okay. So let's just, I mean, like, y'all are free to have your opinions about him. I'm telling you, as somebody, like, I've met him before, solid dude. Okay. So like, I don't know. I'll trust Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and what they're saying about a dude who rode them harder than any coach ever has. And they're singing his praises to this day. I think that's a really good thing. You know, people in the San Antonio Spurs organization where he played, where he coached, have nothing but great things to say about him. Y'all got someone like Nate Bjorkgren on your staff right now, and you're worried about what will, you know, like personality issues on the coaching bench. Come on, man. No, he wasn't. No, he was not harassing a woman in the organization. If you can find proof of that, I will definitely adjust my tune here. But no. So specifically with Ime, it was actually after a Raptor game where he had played and ended up meeting up with him, and it wasn't like a, oh, I know you kind of thing. It was just like, oh, hey, you're Ime Udoka. Yeah, like, that's just how it is. Okay, so it's not, yeah, thank you. Like, yeah, like, let's not spin rumors. You know? Okay, let's continue on with this, guys.
Day, every single moment. He's going to call timeouts. He's going to lay into players. Players going to go back at him. Then he'll bring out the iPad and he'll show the player, this is what you just did right here. You can't do that. Then the player, well, I'm telling you, I see it with my own eyes. Player's like, all right, man, my bad. And like that is squashed right there. So accountability, You want your coach to hold your players, and you believe that your players can handle the accountability, and they're in that position where they know that they have to be held accountable to win. And that's your guy, no question about it. I think the world of Ime Udoka. I know all the stuff off the court. That's one thing. To me, when you ask me about a basketball coach, this dude is next level, absolutely next level when it comes to that area of you want your stars to be held accountable and follow suit. Everyone has to follow suit. Then that's your guy.
No, it's a great point. And Warren Gross points this out. Ime was at the Lakers-Clippers game last night in L.A. He was seen at, I was going to say Staples. He was seen at the Crypt last night. So at some point, he's going to get back into the coaching lexicon. He's too good of a coach, and a team is going to not pay attention to the other things and figure out a way to bring him in. I think from a public relations standpoint, that's probably the biggest conversation you need to have, not as far as developing players or his coaching chops or whatever he's going to do within the locker room. That's going to be the conversation that needs to be had. But from a coaching standpoint, like you said, coach of the year last year, helped the Celtics out of a lot of murky spots, calling his players out publicly, and leading them on a miraculous run, to the NBA Finals. We can't forget about that. Nobody's going to forget about that. And good coaches are really hard to find. So at some point, the sheen on that is going to wear off.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of teams, like so this year, you saw like Quinn Snyder get picked up in the middle of the season by Atlanta Hawks, right? Like, I think there's gonna. This is just me and my opinions. Like, listen, just because I was firsthand there doesn't mean I had knowledge that other people don't have. Like not off the court, on the court. A lot of people know. A lot of people want that, like the type of coach that Ime is. If there's like 5 jobs available, I don't know how many jobs are going to be available. You never know with the playoffs. Like a team could be all good, and next thing you know, they got let go of their coach. This going to be a free agent frenzy, and he might be able to pick his job. And no disrespect to the Pistons, who I love the Pistons. He might not be picking that job.
Thoughts, feelings, concerns? Look, I think so much of how you are as a coach comes down to execution. Obviously, your X's and O's have to be stellar, but they don't have to be stellar. Like, you can hire an assistant for that. Ultimately, does your team come to play? Are you someone who has your team's full faith? Are you someone who has their respect? And do you make people better? Right? I'll trust the track record on this. Jason Tatum is a freaking top 5 MVP candidate this year. You do not, you hear him, like, I think if you listen to Ime enough, you hear him in Jason Tatum now. Like the experience of going through a year with him, going all the way to the finals, right? And look, take a look at, like very quick look at the best half-court defense ratings in the playoffs since 2004, and look at the Celtics half-court defensive rating. I mean, this is a team that swept the freaking Nets, man. Like, and this was historical. And I mean, the Nets played well. I mean, everyone clowns the Brooklyn Nets for getting swept, but honestly, it was close. It was close. All 4 games were pretty close. The Nets played really well. Like, they played historically well as you would expect a team with 2 Hall of Famers to play on. But man, like, the Boston Celtics swept them. And I think that cannot be understated, right? And you take a look at just how well they did in the playoffs. I mean, look at this. Like, we're talking opponent 3-point percentage first. I mean, consider how many open threes the Raptors give. That would go away pretty quickly. Mid-range. I mean, they gave up something, which was at the rim. But I mean, like, some of the defense that they played on Kevin Durant was just, it was freaking inspiring, man. KD's one of my favorite players. It sucked. It was kind of weird. I don't know who to root for. I love, obviously I love Ime Udoka. I love Kevin Durant. I like Jason Tatum. Like, I don't know who to root for in that, but seeing him sweep them, it was a basketball clinic, right? And until they got to the finals, it was keeping up. And then Jason Tatum, I think, I don't think Jason Tatum was healthy in the finals, and that's all she wrote. But the Boston Celtics, for much of this year, I mean, you look at the residue of a coach, right? When a coach leaves, you don't just lose everything. It doesn't just go away, right? It doesn't. It takes a year, right? The Raptors have been on a bit of a downward swing every single year since they fired Casey, right? Like if you look at it like at 2-year chunks, right? Every 2-year chunk has been worse than the previous 2-year chunk. You can say it's because you lost Gasol. You can say it's because you lost Lowry. But every element of it has been that way, from the offense, defense, development, everything has just been going da, 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 da. Now, correlation is not causation. I understand that. There's a lot of things at play. You know, coaches have changed. Assistant coaches have changed. People have come in and out. You know, veterans have swapped. You cannot put this all on Nurse. No one is saying put this all on Nurse. But I am saying, when you look at the Boston Celtics roster, what do you see? I see wings. I see long defenders. I see switchable guys. I see, you know, a defensive starting lineup where no one can be picked on. I see scram switching. I see an incredible, like, it's one thing to have defenders. It's another thing to have a defensive scheme that actually works, that can be adjustable and adapt. It's one thing to have stars. It's another thing to get the best out of your stars. Now, you know, it's difficult as a coach to go up to somebody who makes $50 million a year and you're a first-time head coach or a second-time head coach. You make, you know, 10 times less than they do, and demand that they play defense for the first time in 10 years. Has there been a coach in the league that has held Dame Lillard accountable on defense? Is that easy to do? I don't know. I don't know Dame Lillard. I've never met Dame Lillard. Is it easy to demand that Trae Young move off the ball? Is there a type of person that could have potentially gotten through to Trae Young when they were putting this whole thing together with DeJounte Murray and Trae Young? Because in theory, that backcourt is freaking dynamite. But in practice, you have to actually sell them on it. And if they don't buy it, and that's what the rumor has been in the Raptors locker room all year, management believes in this, players don't. Why do the players not believe in it? Why are the players so disconnected? You just have bad players. Everyone wants to blame Masai Ujiri. Everyone wants to blame Bobby Webster. I'm looking around at this roster and I'm saying the right coach could absolutely take this to a completely different level, because I don't think the right coach is allowing Fred VanVleet to chuck mercilessly because he's his, you know, long lost son. I don't think the right coach is allowing Pascal Siakam to coast on defense. I don't think the right coach is allowing this, you know, pound, you know, let me hunt for my stats. Like, the right coach would pull you if you were doing that. The right coach would talk to you about it. They wouldn't encourage you to do that. But that's where we get into authoritarian coaches. That's where we get into those guys who come from college basketball, start preaching the purity of basketball, and players won't respect it. Players usually rebel. They'll be like, nah, bro. You can take your James Naismith bullshit and you can just shove it up your ass because I'm trying to get paid. This is where being an ex-NBA player really helps. And coming from the Popovich system, knowing how to sell players who don't want to buy into ball movement, playing the right way, playing defense, playing hard, being consistent, playing for each other. That is sometimes difficult to sell to athletes who come up in the AAU circuit where they've all been the man. I think something, you know, worth noting is that every single player, right, on your team in you know, 90% of locker rooms, you look around, you go and talk to every single player. There's 16, 17 players in the locker room, including two-ways. You say, were you the best player in your state? Yes. Were you on the cover of every local, you know, newspaper? Yes. Did you have like hundreds and hundreds of fans? Yep. Did you have girls like hitting up your DMs? Yep. Did you think you were going to be like an NBA All-Star? Yep. Did you aspire to be a McDonald's All-American? Yep. You know, if you're older, did you go to the ABCD camp? Yep. You know, were you a top 5 recruit or like, a 5-star recruit or a 4-star recruit? Yep. Were you drafted? Yep. Like, you have millions of dollars? Yep. Like, can you pretty much get everyone, you know, most women when you go to a club? Yep. Like, it's just, do you know celebrities? Yep. Like, everyone's freaking amazing, right? In the NBA, like, everyone's amazing. How do you convince the 15th guy who's not going to play all year that he's so amazing, but don't be disgruntled about it and don't be a sourpuss and don't melt our locker room and actually still stay engaged because we might need you? How do you sell that? How do you approach that conversation? This is where all the soft skills actually do come in handy. And it comes down to people, man. Now, look, I'm not going to go into the details of Nick Nurse, but I will tell you that there are certain people, let me say this politically correctly, there are certain people that only connect with certain types of people. They don't have like a very adjustable style of connecting with people, and they don't have a wide range of people they can connect with. They only know one type of person, and they only know how to connect with that one type of person. And when faced with the task of connecting with another type of person, they usually flounder. That's the best way I can put it. Have you heard, in all honesty, let me be real with you. All the stuff we hear about Nick Nurse being such a great coach, right? And I'm not denying that he is an X's and O's, genius, and that, he's very creative. And these are all qualities you should admire in a head coach. By the way, all qualities that Ime Udoka also has. But have you ever heard a player other than Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam sing his praises? Have you ever seen Chris Boucher go on a pod and be like, yo, Nick Nurse really, really, unlocked me? I think the bench mob was a really great pet project of Nick Nurse's. And I think that the people who were part of that bench mob would probably say that he enabled them in a lot of ways, and he ignited their careers in ways, and he maybe even treated it like a separate team, and they were like a separate team. They were like a hockey line, But have you heard Kyle Lowry come out and say, yeah, Nick Nurse is the greatest coach I ever played for? Have you heard a star, say that? Have you heard Scotty Barnes go on, some epic rant about how much Nick Nurse is really helping to unlock his game? Have you heard that? Has anyone heard that? I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious. 62 comments here. Let me know. Do you hear that? Kawhi did? What did he say? Because I've heard some Kawhi stories about Nick Nurse, and they're not promising. What did he say about Nick Nurse? Because I've never heard it. So I'm not talking like, you're asked about it and you say like, hey, like, what was it like playing for Nick Nurse? It was great. I'm saying like unprompted, you launched into like a 5-minute rant about how great this coach has been for you. I mean, there are a lot of players out there who will swear by Darvin Ham, right? Like, there are coaches out there who, there are players out there who swear by Damon Stoudemire, Ty Lue. I'm not saying all coaches are equally popular, but like, even if you're not immediately popular, it's not uncommon for someone to give you massive credit after. Phil Handy is another example. Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, exactly. All right, let's go on to a little bit of this. I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but just take a look.
For you here with the Celtics?
Well, the conversations I had with Brad initially, they went very well. I felt like we were in alignment on the way we talked about basketball. And then when I met with the ownership group, Wick and Steve.
May I just stop that and say, if you are in alignment with Brad Stevens on basketball, consider that a massive feather in your cap. And he's not capping either. Like, this is true. And look, elephant in the room, how the Boston media reacts to an African-American coach doing what he did should not be gospel. If you've been to Boston, talk to any NBA player who's been to Boston. If you've never been to Boston, research it, okay? Not the most tolerant market in the world. I mean, that's just me putting it lightly, okay? There are stories from the freaking early 2000s. You realize Paul Pierce got stabbed? Like, can we please be real about this? Like, Boston has had a problem for a really long time. I'm not condemning the city. I've been there. I worked there. Okay, I've worked there before. You feel it. Okay, look. I mean, to those of you who are new NBA fans, maybe you don't know about this. In the early 2000s, 2007, 2008, heard from a player who said, "I will not leave my hotel room in Boston." Heard from another player who said, "Only room service only, and I'm checking my food." Yo, like, you need to like realize that this is not exactly the most tolerant city in the world. Okay, they have a pretty deep history of this shit. And again, it's probably gotten better. I haven't been to Boston in about 5-6 years. I don't know. Okay, and I know African American basketball players who swear it's fine now, but this shit doesn't just wipe away in 1 week. Okay, it's like so that media is there for a reason. Just like our media has a deep connection to hockey. Well, their media has a deep connection to whatever political, and leanings that they have. All right. I'm just keeping it 100 with you guys. Like, you're not gonna. I'm not taking what they say about Ime Udoka as gospel. I would trust Jason Tatum over them. Let's put it that way. Yo, I got called Mexican like twice in Boston. I mean, I guess I'm not taking it. I'm not taking it any other way. Like, I don't care. But like, it was in a very rude way. I'm just saying. Like, it's not. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of comments there. All right, let's just.
It was just more symmetry there. And so, you always look at the relationships within the organization, but then obviously the roster. And then for a first-time head coach, let alone any head coach, they would jump at this opportunity to work with our guys. And so it was an ideal fit for me, a team that has high expectations. That's where I've come from, played in the playoffs all 9 years of my coaching career. So look to continue that.
You were assistant coach with the San Antonio Spurs, the Philadelphia 76ers, and most recently the Brooklyn Nets. How do you think that that'll help prepare you for this new role?
I think all the different experiences will help, enhance me and shape me into who I am as a coach. Obviously, the foundation that I learned in San Antonio, working under Coach Pop for those years is going to carry me through my career, and I'll always have those. But the 2 years outside of San Antonio were almost as invaluable. And so working with different players, different philosophies, and kind of being in the East Coast market and seeing how it is, Philadelphia and Brooklyn, it's all been beneficial. And like I said, as much as I learned in those 7 years, those 2 years were just as crucial for me.
You mentioned that foundation in San Antonio. I know Pop's been really a mentor for you, and he said that you have a great ability to be able to relate to players. What would you say maybe was the greatest lesson that you took during your time from Pop?
The relationship piece, it's pretty much that simple. I mean, there's X's and O's, there's disciplinary, and there's accountability and all those things, but it's really relationship based. And, I watched it obviously playing with Tim, Tony, Manu, those guys as a player, and then moving over to be a coach, I saw the relationship Pop had with those guys. And that's, 15 or so years built up. And so I had to take that into my own relationships with newer guys, whether it be LaMarcus or Kawhi or Ben and Joel in Philadelphia. And you got to have your own genuine touch to that. But I learned it's really all about the relationships. Once you get their trust and show them that you love them, they'll run through a wall for you. And likewise, you want to do the same for your players.
For those that aren't familiar with you or that don't know you very well, how would you describe your overall coaching philosophy and just your coaching style?
Yeah, first thing would be a hard-nosed physicality. You want teams to kind of emulate who you were to some extent as a player, and that's who I was. But if they don't have that, you want to help rub that off onto the players to some extent. And you take a team like Utah, it doesn't matter who the personnel was, you knew what they were going to be with Jerry Sloan. And so some of that is what I look for, but also, unselfish basketball, selfless players. And I was around one of the biggest with Tim, one of the greatest power forwards of all time, is probably the most selfless individual I've known, especially for a superstar Hall of Famer. And so you try to encourage guys to be that. And, obviously Jason, Jalen, and some of the young guys we have are foundational pieces. And so just help them grow, push them to be great and achieve their potential. And they're all asking for that. And I'll be happy to obviously be the next guy to push them in that direction.
As you do help them grow, just for you being a former player, how do you see that just benefiting you and your ability to connect with the players and really have them listen to you?
Yeah, I think there's only benefit to that. I'm not saying someone that didn't play can't be a great coach, but I've been in their shoes, and my journey was a little different. Role player, maybe it's 8th to 10th man, but I've been in their shoes and gone through some of the same things they have, and so you can relate on that level. But at the same time, I understand they are superstars at a certain level, and so there are things I haven't been through as well. But just the day-to-day NBA life and some of the things we can talk about, it's not just about basketball. You have to check on them off the court and make sure everything's going on with their family as well. And I've
formed those relationships with those guys over the last few years, and I think that'll be great for us going forward. Just hit the ground running. I don't have to really spend time building those. They're already there, and it's just more so establishing what's next with us.
Right. With those relationships, I mean, you worked with them during the FIBA World Cup, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart. What was that experience like for you and kind of the bond that you've already created now heading into this season?
Yeah. It was great. And like I said, we bonded and from day one, it was something coincidental that, you know, it just happened to be these three Celtic guys. And, you know, I was good with all the players, but I really liked something about each of those guys. And you know, Jaylen's temperament from day one. I told him the other day he was one of my favorite players 3-4 years ago, and I could see the potential and growth where he was at. You know, me, who I was as a player, is very similar to some of the things Marcus brings. And so I love his edge, his chip that he plays with, and I see how invaluable that is for a franchise. And then Jason, you know, just seeing his growth, you know, we kind of plugged him in to be, before he got injured last year, we plugged him in to probably be one of the top 3 guys with Donovan Mitchell and some others. And, you know, unfortunately he got injured, but we saw it in practice from day one, you know, his growth and potential. And so it's not surprising to see what he's done over the last few postseasons against us. And so, funny story, he thanked me for the Philly series. You know, he said, thanks, you helped me get paid and, and blah, blah, blah. But like I said, I've seen it firsthand with Philadelphia and Brooklyn. And even though we won in Brooklyn this year, you know, he had 50 in one of those games. And obviously it was a handful. So potential is crazy and he wants to be pushed, and I'll be happy to do so.
Yeah. How do you balance that, though, you know, coming in, pushing the guys and motivating them, but also being a coach that the players want to come to and kind of balancing that?
Big one.
Yeah, it's you know, some of the conversations we had from day one is we need this. We need to go in this direction, and we feel you've done that authentically already with us, so continue to be who you are. And then the balance is, you know, I go back to off the court, you know, trust, respect, and building these relationships with these guys. And so, you know, the perception of what a head coach has to be, I kind of try to debunk some of those things. I'm going to be who I am. I was very hands-on as an assistant, and that'll not change as a head coach. So
he told you who
they'll
he
probably
was.
see certain things where like, damn, I've never seen this from a head coach, but it is who I am. It's who I've been with them, and obviously delegate responsibility to your staff. But me forming those relationships is built off something that I'll continue to grow.
Finally, before we let you go, another one of those relationships, Al Horford. I know you worked with him in Philly, and he even said during his presser, you guys have a great relationship. What do you think that, you know, now being back with the Celtics, a veteran big, a versatile big in Horford can do for this Celtics team and really impact this group?
Yeah, well, the leadership piece is what stands out from day one. You know, he was a vocal voice in Philadelphia and just getting there, you know, as I did. So you could see the leadership piece there, the veteran experience and playoff series he's gone through in Atlanta and Boston, but also the versatility he brings. He brings a different dynamic than, say, a Robert Williams or even Tristan or whoever it may be, you know, a big that can shoot the ball and pass the ball, initiate some offense. So there's a lot of great things he does, not just the leadership, it's on the court as well. And although we had an up and down year in Philly, we all did that year. You saw him last year with Oklahoma City kind of get back to who he was. And, you know, I know him well enough and worked with him specifically in the bubble where I can push him to that and help him be who he is. And we've talked about it already, and look, we're both looking forward to being back together.
Well, Ime, congratulations. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
So, look, we are in a very weird place as a society, in my opinion, where we are very quick to judge people and very slow to examine who people are. I reached out to people who covered the Boston Celtics last year, I'm advancing myself here, 2 years ago and last year. And they said that the team felt connected, that he was really pleasant to be around. And, you know, again, these are people who were like around him the way Michael Grange is around Nick Nurse. So, again, Boston is a weird city in a lot of ways. When it comes to a scandal like this, there's, you know, a lot of things that you have to consider. And unfortunately, like with everything in America, race is going to play a really huge part into it. I'm not crying racism on every single thing, but I am telling you that when an African-American coach sleeps with a white woman who happens to be, you know, the wife of a very, very, very wealthy person in the Celtics organization, yeah, it's going to be handled like the way that they know deep down how their fan base would want something like that to be handled, and it's not going to be good. So, look, you can go back in the history books. You can look at what Bill Russell said about the Boston Celtics. You can look at, everything. I'm not trying to harp on that fact, but I am saying that you need to give this a chance. You need to not brush this off and just say, okay, well, he made one mistake, so fuck him. Okay, coaches like this do not grow on trees. And everything he said in that interview, to me, it vibes with me, right? Accountability, connectedness, selflessness, holding stars accountable. What have I been complaining about all freaking year? Is that Fred VanVleet and Nick Nurse seem to think that Christian Coloco, Delano Banton, Scotty Barnes are the issues. But they're not. And look, if you understand basketball, you know that the people who are taking the shots, the people who are making the decisions in your offense are the ones who need to be held accountable. Too often, coaches do not hold those players accountable. Okay? And sometimes you get a gem like a Tyrese Halliburton who demands that hey, hold me accountable. Please hold me accountable. Sometimes you get lucky. You have a player like Michael Jordan who holds himself accountable, might even hold you accountable, but you just need to redirect some of the accountability. Right? The conversations that were had in the Boston Celtics locker room last year, the impact that he had on how consistently great they were in the playoffs and in the second half of the season, how tough they were, and the impact that he's had on the maturity of a Jaylen Brown, a Jason Tatum, a Marcus Smart. I think these are all young men. They're all in their 20s. They all had a lot of growing up to do. And, I think he was a huge catalyst for that. And I think Brad Stevens had, despite being a brilliant coach, I think Brad Stevens is a great example of just a brilliant coach, X's and O's tactician, who's just having a lot of difficulty connecting with his players. And, Ime coming in, it just took them to the next level. Finally, I just want to say that guys like Precious Achiuwa, Christian Coloco, Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, suffice to say, I'm not suggesting that any of these players next year would be on the level offensively of a Jaylen Brown or a Jason Tatum. I am, however, saying that if I was Ime Udoka and I was looking around with all of my principles and all of my, success and all of my leanings basketball-wise, what team would I choose? Now, there's two realistic options for Ime if those two slots become open, and that's the Portland Trailblazers and the Toronto Raptors. Sorry, your goat. No one's going to coach Detroit. If Ime Udoka coaches Detroit, please know that someone held a gun to his head when he signed that contract. It's not happening. So I believe he'll pick between these two places. He's had history with the Portland Trailblazers. He played for the Portland Trailblazers. He was born in Portland, Oregon. There is connection there. But his connection with Masai Ujiri and the advanced stage of this roster may be better. I do believe if I am choosing between the two teams, which team would I rather coach? Just, trying to put my Ime hat on for a second and trying to think like how he might think. I would pick the Raptors for sure. It's a bigger market. It's a better city. No offense to Portland. Love Portland. Honestly, if anyone from Portland, hears this, I love your city. But I think definitely, I think the Raptors job is more appealing. I think, the chance to do something great with Scotty and Pascal and OG to right this ship. I think the Raptors could turn it around heavy next year. I think he could unlock Pascal in a way that Nurse hasn't been able to. I think, the talent is there. I think sometimes the mindset isn't. With Scotty, I think just they'd be best friends. Like the connection between these two, just take it from somebody who's listened to a lot of Ime Udoka interviews over the last 12 years, 15 years, and who has followed Scotty Barnes for a while. This is a connection made in heaven between these two. And yeah, I think he just really fits the locker room. I think he really fits the team. Yeah, that's true, right? Okay, if you want to call in, we have one caller, James, but if you want to call in have a quick conversation for 10 minutes, here's the link. Feel free to call in and you can just chime in. James, what's up?
Hey,
How you doing?
good. So I like Ime Udoka thinking our players need to be accountable because Nick Nurse is way too soft, and I like him as a coach, but he's not the guy that you're gonna he's gonna be stern with his players, and I think Ime Udoka could form a connection with Pascal, Freddie if he's gonna stay.
Mhm.
And the young guys, they don't get any time, so you can't see the young guys evolve into really good players, because I
Yeah.
think if Delano Banton had a shot at some minutes, and Malachi Flynn and Christian Coloco, like half those guys have been stuck in the G League half of the season. Maybe not Malachi Flynn, but
Yeah.
you know,
No, I see your point. And look, like
yeah,
there's been a lot of open criticism of Nick Nurse from Malachi's dad, which initially I sort of brushed off, but
yeah,
the more we go into the season, the more I've sort of started to pay attention to it, and I'm like, huh, he makes sense.
yeah,
Like if you watch Malachi in college, if you've seen, Delano last year, you could definitely argue that neither of these players have taken the step up that's required.
yeah,
And rumors are now, or reports are, not rumors, reports. I mean, serious outlets are now reporting that the Raptors are openly evaluating their relationship with Nick Nurse. And look, the
yeah,
clip that I showed, the Raptors locker room, just
yeah.
it's not the reaction that you want after a guy goes off for 20 and 20, right? In a win.
No,
Um, so again, reading the tea leaves here, I think, I'm hoping that this team will be professional.
yeah,
Heading into the play-in, obviously, it's too late now to, deliberately start losing games because at worst you're going to be 10th, at best you're going to be 9th.
yeah,
But yeah, like I think the minute the season is over, I think they need to really think about what's best for this roster. And I think Ime Udoka is what's best for this roster, in all honesty. Like I think he can unlock. I mean, look, I'm never gonna say that Pascal Siakam has the capability of being a top 5 player or anything like that. He's not
no,
Jason Tatum, but he can be better.
yeah,
And look, like Rob Williams is a young player and
yeah,
he thrived under Ime last year. Peyton Pritchard is a young player and I think he did really well under Ime as well. I think there are a lot of players, when you look at rosters that are over exceeding expectations, like, yeah, you can look at the Boston Celtics and say, damn, like it's a
yeah,
really, really good roster.
yeah,
But they were falling apart like in the beginning of the year, and to pull them together and get them to the finals, I think that shows not only somebody who's willing to have difficult conversations, but also someone who is schematically and technically very proficient in the X's and O's of the game. I mean, they didn't just barely eke out a win against, the teams in the playoffs. Like they were
no,
beating the crap out of teams
yeah,
until they got to the finals. So look, I think he's a great coach. I think any team would be lucky to have him. I hope the off-court stuff doesn't become a massive hindrance or distraction. Would you support him?
yeah. I would, and I think, like, I wish everybody would just forgive him for what he did. I mean, nobody's perfect. We're all
Absolutely.
human,
We're not
you
judging
know,
people by their worst moment. You know
no,
what I mean?
no,
Like this is not a pattern of behavior. It's not like he burned out of 20 organizations,
no, and
And
I,
honestly, I think another thing that's sort of underrated is we don't often account for like how people come up, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Like not everyone was born, in the same situation. Not everyone was
no,
like born super rich or whatever. People have
yeah,
traumatic experiences living in poor neighborhoods, living in government housing and all that shit. I mean, it can absolutely, it can impact like your relationship with even things like infidelity and shit like that. We're gonna bring Oak
yeah.
Tree on as well. We can have a
I
kind of
think the
joint
family
conversation.
income has to be under 60 grand.
Hey, Oak Tree,
Hopefully
what's
not
up, man?
haunted. Yeah, man.
How you doing?
Good, man. Good.
This is the first time we're having just like a random, like we're bringing
Yeah.
anyone who wants to be on. Come on, yeah,
Wicked. Yeah, did I trim down the TV enough? Hold on.
please do, yeah. I guess Oak Tree meet James, James meet Oak Tree.
Hey, what's going on, James? Yeah, man. Okay, look, I was thinking yesterday.
Yeah,
Now, this is not on the same level, but I was thinking back to David Robinson and the
right.
way he used to play when he was before Duncan came. So,
Selfish.
okay, sure, but remember he used to splash. He used his speed. He didn't have a great outside shot per se, but he was able to. Basically, I'm trying to put a parallel between him and, again, it might be blasphemy, and I'm not saying he's anywhere near him, but Pascal. And then now, him, and again, I'm not. Please, I'm not putting Pascal on that level, man. What I'm trying to say is, I was just thinking about this. That, hey, man, all of a sudden now you have a possible Duncan coming in. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Who's Duncan?
Scotty. And I'm saying down the road.
So here's an interesting sidebar. So today, we got an interview. We got the Raptors open gym episode dropped. Shout outs to Greg for putting that together. The director of open gym. So Fred VanVleet is talking about his younger teammates, which is always, it's never good. Even when he's trying to be nice about it, it always sucks what he has to say. And so he says, Scott, in 5 years, we're going to look up and Scotty Barnes is going to be an all-star. And I was just like, motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly. You have no,
It's like, motherfucker, you think Scotty's waiting 5 years to make all-star because you're gonna, you're gonna hog up possessions for the next 5 years? But that's the issue, right? There's an idea here that we're gonna take our turn running the ship for a bit, and you wait your turn the way we waited our turn for Kyle and DeMar, right? They have an expectation that things that happened are going to happen again. And Scotty's like, I was rookie of the year, top 5 recruit in the country, McDonald's All-American. I'm not an undrafted player. I'm really good right now. So I can make the All-Star team now. I don't have to wait 5 years. But they're like, nah, you got to wait because we waited, you wait. But it's like, bro, I worked harder than you, so fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, Scotty Barnes was better at 18 than Siakam was at 21. Is that cap? I don't think so. So it's like, that's my point. So, like, that idea that he says in 5 years, you look up and Scotty's being an all-star, I feel like that's calculated. I may be reading too much into it, but, like, to me, it's like these guys don't see Scotty taking that step to stardom next year, because if he becomes the star, what the hell are they?
Nothing.
Again, they're a second and third option.
Right? But they're trying to get paid like first and second options.
No, but that can't happen. That ain't going to happen. They've already, especially Fred, he's already shot himself in the foot. If other guys who are pushing the Fred narrative, and I'm not going to name he who shall not be named, but even if that individual is downing him, that is telling you something. That is telling you that.
I gotta tell you something, man. I'm trying not to discuss that dude, but let me tell you something. That dude has been going harder at Fred the last week than I have.
Man, he's ready to knuckle down. It's hilarious, and I'm saying that's the Pensari effect. I know there's different words out there, but that's the Pensari effect. Give knowledge, bring knowledge into dark places.
Well, I'm hoping that's the case, but you know what's really weird to me? It's like I was listening to one of his videos, and I liked what he was saying. I was like, great, call him out, whatever. I listened to the second one, and I was like, too far. And I'm like, yo, if I'm saying too far on Fred, how far have you gone? You know what I mean? So like, oh, Oak Tree's gone. Oak Tree, you gone? Oh man, Oak Tree left. I wanted to pull up something kind of crazy, but I can't seem to find it. Have you guys seen the all brick team from Basketball Forever?
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh my God. That's crazy. I'm trying to find it here. Got it. I'm so glad. I think people are gonna have a field day on this one.
That was funny.
Why am I not able to? Yeah, it's so crazy because like I was looking into it and people were like, hey, Fred VanVleet's a guard, so field goal percentage is not the most representative stat. And you know what's the craziest thing and the most savage thing about this is they actually tagged him. Oak Tree is back.
Yeah, man, sorry.
Yo, Oak Tree, you want to laugh?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna show you something on my screen, and I think you're gonna laugh your ass off on this one. Hang on. Where is this? Some downloads. Oh man.
I remember that Kings celebration with the
The assistant coach?
interim head coach. Yeah, and they were water showering him and celebrating, but Fred scores 20 and 20, and it's like, yay, Fred!
It felt so
Okay.
forced. It really did. It's like,
Yeah.
and you compare that to just like how they celebrated Pascal
Yeah.
in New York, and it's completely different. Okay, Oak Tree, here's your laugh.
All right.
Here's your laugh. All right. Now, thank you, Basketball Forever, for this.
Wow.
All NBA break team.
Wow.
Yo,
Man,
this was
that is
savage.
great.
And the craziest part is
Wow.
they tagged him. They tagged them all.
Oh,
Now, first of all,
Wow.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Jabari Smith Jr. I love Jabari Smith Jr. and I'm so sad for him that he made that team. And I was like, yo, how are you gonna do my man like that? That was so crazy. But he's a rookie. Like,
yeah.
Dylan Brooks is such a chucker. And to anyone out there who's gonna tell me, Rob, field goal percentage is not the way to do this. You gotta look at EFG. You gotta look at true shooting percentage. Okay, I looked at true shooting percentage. Fred's 27th percentile in true shooting percentage. Now you're going to tell me, but he's a guard, Rob. Guards are always low in true shooting percentage. Steph's 95th. Dame
Yeah.
is 89th. So let's not cap, okay? You do not end up at the bottom of the league in field goal percentage without being really, really, really chucker friendly. Like you're a chucker. If you end up at the bottom of the list, you're either a terrible shooter who's having the worst season from hell, which Fred is not. He's not a terrible shooter. He's a good shooter.
Yeah.
Or you are. It's really two things. You take terrible shots. Number one, and number two, you're in a position in the offense that you do not belong in. If you wanted to initiate like your entire offense and say, okay, Christian Coloco, go get us, isolation buckets, take 25 shots a game. He might shoot 39% too.
Yeah.
But that's the point. They're not doing that for Christian Coloco, and they're not doing that for Malachi Flynn and Jeff Doughton. They're doing it for Fred. So, I think I would love to see Ime Udoka rip Fred a new one personally. And I feel like he wouldn't even be afraid to. He'd be like, yo, bro, like, stop with this undrafted bullshit. Like, I was undrafted too. You know what I mean? Like, he would talk about it from a real place. And I think so much, Oak Tree, I think, and James, I think so much of it comes down to, how am I going to say this? How you say things.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna leave this with we're gonna go to the game. We're gonna end this and start the game because I think the game's starting in about 3 minutes. But I just want to say that my grandmother used to say this thing, and I was talking with Larry earlier today, and there's a quote from my grandmother. I'm gonna end this live on a quote from my grandmother. She said,
Nice.
"There's 1,000 ways to deliver bad news, and most of them are good."
Huh.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And I've never heard anyone say anything like that, so I'm pretty sure she invented it herself. And shout outs to my grandmother, rest in peace. But it was like it made me think so hard. It's like, there is a way to communicate. Hey, we're not playing well, and then there's a way to do it that shuts people down, and then there's a way to do it that inspires people. And yeah, I think Ime would be really good for this team. I really, really hope that the Toronto media will give him a chance and not try to distract everything and, make every fucking thing in his opening press conference. I know he's prepared for it. I know that for sure. He is definitely prepared for it. I think the year off, but when these coaching jobs do come up in Detroit, will open up for sure. Dwayne Casey, I believe, is moving up to the head office. Why, I don't know, but apparently he's done such a great job with Detroit, so we'll move up to the head office. It's like it reminds me of that Seinfeld episode where the guy just keeps getting promoted for doing a terrible job.
Actually, Rob, I gotta say that happens in a lot of companies, especially corporations.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it does. You're right. Someone said, I think Jason is playing today. Yeah, I believe he is.
Sure.
Whip us a
Oh
new
my
one.
God! Imagine the slaughter. But I hope Fred plays, and I just want to see what damage happens. But the only thing I fear is that he'll blame the wrist. That's all, or the finger, whatever he jammed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but don't worry, he's gonna blame it, but then he's gonna tell you, but not making excuses, so they can print the headline: Fred VanVleet does not make excuses. Anyway, look, okay, this is gonna sound crazy. I think Fred VanVleet can have a good game tonight. I think he's gonna have a decent game, bounce back game. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm looking at the tape. They're not guarding him nearly as hard as he thinks they are.
Yeah.
And on the other end, their eyes are lighting up when they have this dude. lighting up. It's like my turn, no, your turn, my turn, no. Who got the little man? Who got the little man? I got the little man. All right.
Yeah. Who gets to eat? Who gets to eat next?
Oh my God, it's so embarrassing. And then to listen to him tell it, it's like nobody wants to play up against him. Everyone's scared of him. And I've been trying to be really positive about Pascal Siakam. I've been trying. If you've been listening to these lives, I'm trying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But listening to him on the Draymond Green podcast,
that pissed me off.
Bro, why are you doing this right now? Why are you on a press tour when your team is fucking ninth? And okay, I'll leave you with something funny for this. Draymond Green on the Toronto Raptors. He called them the Toronto Rockets, yo.
Oh my
Wow.
Did you catch that? He's like
No, I
Toronto
didn't catch
Rocket Raptors. And I was just like, yo, if that wasn't a Freudian slip, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Because there's so many times this year that I've looked at the Rockets offense and I'm like, where have I seen this before? Gosh. Anyways, guys, enjoy the Boston Celtics, versus the Toronto Raptors. Given the play-in implications, I'm really rooting for the Raptors here, obviously, but I'm not holding my breath. And I'll see you guys after the post game.
Yeah.
All right, man. Definite.
Cheers. Have a good one.
Ciao.
Before we end this live, I do want to say a big shout out to this community. Thank you so much. I cannot help but notice that Goateology, which was at 106 subscribers yesterday, has passed 250 subscribers. The goal, guys, is to get Goateology to 1,000 subscribers by the play-in, and I know this community can do it. With the number of people who are watching these videos, hopefully a different branch of people are watching it. It's not the same 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people every single time. And yeah, man, let's support this guy. He's creating great content in the Raptor space. He is one of you. He is, in these lives. And yesterday, he randomly pops up. We did a 4 a.m. live, which was just, I think, a really good one, personally, about, what Fred VanVleet said about whether or not the Toronto Raptors, whether or not fans have a right to this. And I had a back and forth with CJ Miles on Twitter. And so I made a video about it. And it was very respectful and very polite. And towards the end of it, I was giving him a little shout out, and he pops up with a friggin', $70 super chat. And then today we had a chance to connect on Twitter, and I got to know who he actually was. And let's just say I'm even happier to support him now that I know who he actually is. But his identity shall remain, mysterious, like Batman. But support the dude, man. He's making great content. The work that's going into these videos. His Scotty Barnes video, this untold story of Scotty Barnes is awesome. If you need some perspective in terms of where Scotty's coming from, where his drive and passion comes from, go check that video out if you haven't already. And, subscribe to the dude, because like there's hours. Like he said 2 weeks. I think he said 2 weeks of work went into that Scotty video. The dude has got COVID right now. So, shout outs to Goateology, and I hope you're feeling better, bro, very soon. But he said, he's a workaholic, so he's going to learn. And very soon I think you're going to see this channel, like his channel, like I think it's going to explode to like, if he keeps this up, I think it's going to be like 10,000 subscribers before you even know it. So get in early, be one of the first to support it, get it up to 1,000 so you can start making some money for these videos, because they're friggin' awesome. All right. Cheers. Have a good one. See you after the game. And I have no idea if there were any. Yeah, I wasn't monitoring the. Both are great videos. Thank you. Good reminder, James. Sean, Hi Cats. I think their concert's tonight. Yes, their concert is tonight in Hamilton. Check out the Hi Cats in Hamilton. If you don't feel like checking out the post game or whatever, go support them. And yes, hit like on your way out. Yes, if you hit like, the Raptors will win, unless you're rooting for the Raptors to lose, in which case hit like or the Raptors will lose. Yo, for sure. Yo, that's a fact. Yo, if you thought this video was about humanizing Ime Udoka, that open gym episode was like trying to humanize Fred VanVleet. But yeah. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. See you after the post game, or see you for the post game in 3 hours. Peace.